Good morning, Heber Valley. Good morning. Welcome to For the Health of It this morning. I am Dr. Scott Phillips, owner and operator of Lifestyle Chiropractic and Wellness Center in the Clock Tower building on Main Street, and I get to be your healthcare expert for the next hour. And we've got some fun things to discuss today. We're kind of running on a little bit of an emergency situation. I shouldn't say that too. It's close to April Fool's, but we had some ER people coming in to talk about their new designation as a Trauma 5 center, which is a really kind of neat thing for the hospital. But they are stuck in the ER. Apparently, the morning's been busier than they thought, and they've had more things to deal with. And so, I guess leave it to me to have emergency people coming on and expecting them to not have emergency to come up. So we're going to see if they can make it in here a little bit later, and if they can, great, and if they can't, then that's okay. We got plenty of things that we can talk about. But happy Thursday morning. A little bit of snow this morning. I know I heard a few people that got in some wrecks even on the way to Park City, things being a little slicker. It looks pretty easy to me right now, but maybe this morning was a little worse. But of course, we know we can use that snow up in the mountains. So Mother Nature's playing a late April Fool's joke on us is what I heard people saying today. So, but it should be a great day. We got a few things to talk about as far as events going on. The first one I really wanted to highlight is a fundraiser, or not really even a fundraiser, but a volunteer opportunity where we've talked to a few people here on the show about the importance of school gardens. I think anyone that knows me or listens to the show ever realizes my view on that I feel like it's a really important and neat thing that we have to have schools that are telling us that they don't mind having some garden access for the kids. And so anyway, so we have one at Midway Elementary already. But I am helping kind of head up a group that's putting one together over at Heber Valley Elementary. And so on April 18th, which is not this Saturday and not the next Saturday, but the one after that, we are getting a group together to help start to build our boxes for our garden. So that is open to anyone to volunteer. I'm not exactly sure the time yet. I imagine it's a mid-morning type of a time, probably a 9-10 o'clock meet there at Heber Valley Elementary. And there's going to be a lot of things that we can do, a lot of things to help out with, and so anyway, mark that on your calendar on the 18th. I'll be back in 2 weeks to give you an exact time that you can be over there. But if you just mark the day and get ready to do that, I know that will be very helpful. And if you have a child or grandchild there at that school, then obviously even better for you to come out and show your support for that project. So again, that's April 18th, really funded and helped by the Heber Valley Food Revolution. They've been really active in getting that going. And there's always need for donations, always need for funds and things like that. So contact them too if you're wanting to donate some money or materials, if not just your time. So that is coming up, and then we have some other classes in the Valley. I wanted to highlight, just because this next meeting's coming up on Tuesday. There is that group, the Wasatch Wellness Network. Marty Harger was in last week talking a little bit about it, and they are a group of healthcare practitioners in the Valley just that kind of get together, and mostly alternative in nature, but there's definitely medical doctors and just people that are interested in treating things a little more naturally and a little more holistically. And so if there are any practitioners out there that want to get involved in this group, we meet on Tuesday, and you can come check us out for free. We're just over at Balance, which now I know is 245 West, 100 South, because it's Balance 245, which Marty explained last week too. But it's that blue house on the way to Midway, and it's at 9 o'clock in the morning coming up on Tuesday. And I believe the date is the 7th of April. So those are just a few things going on. You're welcome to let me know if you know anything else going on. Please feel free to call it in too. If you have any events too. I just want to make sure people know I'm bad at giving this announcement early on, but I'm definitely taking phone calls throughout the show. So if you ever have a question or anything that you want to announce or just comment, for sure, feel free to call in. My phone number here is 657-1340, 657-1340. And so call in and ask your questions or give your comments for sure. You're always welcome to do that. Let's move on to some interesting articles that I kind of found as I was kind of perusing the literature, which is something I like to do in my spare time. This one was really interesting, and it may not be something that we deal with as much in Utah, but I thought this was, you look at parents and they're having a good time at a party or something, weekends are coming up, and they're maybe having a drink, and they look at their kid and they think, oh, what's a little sip going to do to hurt them? And so a lot of times kids get introduced to alcohol even just with a little sip and think it's fine. Well, this new study says that kids allowed sips of alcohol are more likely to drink in high school. Not only just a little more likely, but it's like 5 times more likely. And not only that, they're 5 times more likely to have a full drink by the time they're in high school, and 4 times more likely to binge drink or get drunk by the time they're in high school. And this is anybody that sipped a drink before the 6th grade. So I mean, we're talking probably before the age of 10, before the age of 11, something like that. And so it's kind of an interesting article. It's an interesting study that they've done. Obviously, if you try to even factor out, other problems like, parents are alcoholics or things like that, or even a risk-taking personality, you still take that out of consideration, and we still see this rise. So if you're the one that is having a drink and you see your kid and you think, oh, it's time for Johnny to be a man, or I don't know why people give sips of alcohol to kids under 6th grade, but if that was something that runs through your mind or a friend's mind or a relative's mind and they think, oh, what could it hurt? Well, now we have a study that says it can hurt. And so obviously alcoholism, the issues that we have with kids drinking and not really understanding the repercussions even, so to speak, this is a good thing for them to realize, hey, okay, maybe this isn't, for parents to think maybe this isn't a good idea, maybe there is something that can be harmful. So take that for what you will, but just with holidays coming around. The other thing I want to talk about with Easter being this weekend is the desire and need almost for Easter to become this like second Halloween. I don't know if anyone else has started to feel this, right? But instead of it being a holiday where we celebrate religious things and stuff like that, it's more this, idea that, hey, and it's even worse than Halloween, I think, because it's not even going around house to house. Now it's going to all these different hunts and going out and getting crazy and trying to get as much candy as you can. And so my idea was to give you guys a couple of little maybe alternatives to all the candy that's going to happen. Again, we've talked on the show lots and lots of times about the dangers of sugar, the dangers of the artificial colorings and all that kind of stuff that's in all this really popular candy that we're going to be consuming probably more than we should this weekend. And so just as a reminder, and then hopefully we can kind of get some alternatives going too for you, so that you're not too lost as far as, hey, what should I do if that guy's telling me that I shouldn't be doing it, but what else can I do? So the first thing I would say is, hopefully, if it is a religious holiday, obviously, and if there is religion in the home, or if there's any kind of, even if it's not a specified denomination, right? Easter is a time to celebrate life and celebrate, obviously, the resurrection of Jesus Christ is the whole reason that the holiday is around. If you don't want to be that specific, obviously, it's springtime, it's new beginnings, it's things like that. It's a chance to renew things, right? And so I think definitely a time to talk about that and to make that kind of the center of the celebration. the Easter Bunny's fun and all that kind of stuff, but I think there definitely needs to be that focus, and hopefully, as you focus more on that, then it's less on, okay, then sounds good, Mom, but where's my candy type of thing. And then of course alternatives, right? Those little tiny toys that you can find anywhere. I think a little army guys or stuff like that you can put in those little eggs if you want. I know money is popular if you don't want to give a ton of money, especially got little kids, man. My kids would go crazy over a few pennies in each of those eggs, and it jingles nicely, and they get excited about that and put it in a little piggy bank or in a wallet or something like that. Now, if you have older ones that know that 13 cents isn't that big of a deal, then obviously that can get a little bit more expensive. But, a dollar bill here or there as you intermingle it with some of the other things makes them excited, and that makes it so you don't have to have as much candy laying around. As far as the Easter baskets go, right? I mean, just little toys. My wife is the queen of going to the dollar store and finding just these kind of intriguing, fun to open types of things, not spending a lot of money, but finding, hey, here's something that's going to be fun for a day or two, and it'll probably break after that, but it's an exciting thing for the kids to find. Little bow and arrows, or we got a little handcuff set just recently that my son almost got stuck in, but luckily they were really cheap, and so it's pretty easy to break and get them out. So, of course, if you want to know what they were, just in case you want some for kids that they can't get out of, I can give you that information too. But again, just these ideas of how can we stay away from too much of the refined sugars, how much can we stay away from too much of that candy, make some natural treats, right? Make something at home and say, hey, we're going to make these, and then give them to the Easter Bunny so he can hide them around. That stuff can work really, really well too. Just make it this time. It's very easy to just say, oh, let's buy 6 bags of candy and put a bunch in eggs and have them hidden and let the kids find them and then eat candy all day. Which is, one time a year is not a big deal, but it seems like every holiday now centers around just massive amounts of candy. And so I would just encourage any parents listening to say, hey, maybe there's something different that we can do. Maybe there's something more, maybe takes a little bit more time, maybe not takes as much, maybe a little bit more money, maybe not any more money. But just the idea to, hey, let's try to get away from the overconsumption of sugar and candy. And so those are kind of some ideas. Again, if you have any ideas out there that you're listening and say, hey, you know what, this is something we do, feel free to call in and let us know what those are. I think this is a great weekend to talk about that. So again, 657-1340 if you have any of those types of ideas. The other article that I read that I thought was kind of interesting is some research about body odor. Now, this is a fun Thursday morning topic, right? Nothing like going in a sweaty bus. So the story goes, maybe this is why I was even interested in this. But I was on a school bus yesterday, heading down to the zoo. We went with second graders. It was a great time, but it was a fairly crowded bus with kids that may or may not be as hygienic as we want them to be. One of the second graders was mine, and I understand the need to force them to brush their teeth and to wash and all that kind of stuff. Luckily, it wasn't very warm or hot yesterday, but I've heard stories of being on a bus with a bunch of sweaty kids that don't really... And anyway, it can be a very uncomfortable experience. But if anybody's ridden any public transportation or anything like that, you're in close quarters, maybe an elevator, and you get that smell of body odor, right? You guys seen that Seinfeld episode where they talk about it being BBO, right? It's not just body odor, it's beyond body odor. It takes on a life of itself, and that smell is so distinct that when you smell it, there's really nothing in the world that can take it away. So this study came out and said new research that could take the stink out of body odor. So I hope this is something that's interesting. It was interesting to me because actually scientists have been able to go into this bacteria. The one specifically that they found is called Staphylococcus hominis, and you have just billions on your armpits and other areas that tend to smell. We'll focus on the armpits today, I guess. I know this is kind of gross. I hope this is useful information and not just something to make you kind of grossed out. But people struggle with this, so I'm here to help everybody, right? I'm helping the masses. This can be a community service to get people interested, or at least knowing what's going on. So they say, there are more of these bacteria on one arm than human beings living on the whole planet. And so what they have is sometimes they have a gene that when they break down the sweat that comes in this area, that they actually will put off this smell. And it's hard to really quantify and say exactly what the smell is, right? Some people say kind of oniony, kind of sulfury. There's just this. Anyway, so there's an active molecular pathway for this form of body odor that they finally found. And this is the first time that they've discovered this pathway to know what to do about it. They've identified genes that encode the proteins responsible for producing free thioalcohols. Now that's the word or the term of these odor-causing chemicals. They're thioalcohols. And so when you sweat, again, these bacteria kind of break this down, break down the sweat, and then they emit these thioalcohols. This is why, right, when you go to the gym, maybe you don't sweat too bad or smell too bad after, but you put your clothes in your gym bag. And then since you go to the gym only once a week or once a month, the next time you open that gym bag up, you're like, oh my goodness, what died in here? And actually it's these bacteria that, given longer time, they're able to continue to digest and to metabolize this sweat. So they found out that there are other Staphylococcus species that produce thioalcohols, but the Staphylococcus hominis is the one that does the most. And they say you only need a tiny number of these bacteria to create an extremely smelly amount of this odor. And so you don't need a ton of it. So basically what we've done to combat this, and they said, we try to make it so you don't sweat, right? So you get these antiperspirants that make it so you don't sweat. Now, there's research that's come out against these types of products to say, hey, healthy, it's healthy to sweat. It's good to detoxify. In fact, I've seen ideas that, hey, when we stop the sweat glands in the armpit, then that can kind of back up our own natural detoxifying mechanisms and can keep these toxins in the body for longer. And so sometimes people, especially more in the natural world, right, that's why some of our more natural people kind of stink a little bit sometimes, is because we're not willing to sacrifice the sometimes uncomfortable smell for some of these other health implications. And so I've seen a lot of warnings against using antiperspirants, but obviously if the sweat isn't there, then the bacteria can't break down the sweat. So then you've got that aspect of it, and then you have the other aspect of just kind of putting in a better smelling chemical that can try to overpower the other smell, right? And so you know this when you go into a smelly room or something, you try to spray some sort of air freshener, right? And sometimes it works, and other times it just smells like rose-smelling, gross stuff. And so sometimes it masks it well, and sometimes it doesn't. But you have to realize that some people really do struggle with this and can't even get a hold of it from using some of these products. And so this can be a really interesting path for them to be able to take. So what we're looking at here is trying to be able to stop, at a molecular level, stop these bacteria from producing these thioalcohols. The other problem too is these products that we use, and you know this, right? They wear off, right? They keep you fresh for about 12 to 24 hours, depending. But what's worse than planning a weekend vacation or something like that and getting to the hotel room and finding out that you forgot deodorant? I mean, there's nothing, and then you're starting to say, okay, well, I can't sweat too much because I can't, I've got to make this last as long as possible. It gets a very nervous type of situation. The other kind of interesting and somewhat crazy thing that one scientist has done before is actually transplanted some of these bacteria for good bacteria. So again, we've talked in here about what an opportunistic infection is, right? Where bacteria can grow and proliferate on areas where they're allowed to do so. And if there are already bacteria in the area, then they can't really proliferate. And so a real similar idea here, right, with this Staphylococcus hominis if there's tons of it on your armpit, there's a doctor that's gone in and taken a bunch of these bacteria out and then replaced them with a harmless, right, again, just different bacteria that then can proliferate in the area and then make it so the Staphylococcus hominis does not proliferate. And so almost effectively eliminating the production of this bacteria, which then, of course, hopefully eliminates the production of the thioalcohols. And so to make somewhat of a boring story a little less boring, it's this kind of armpit transplant idea that sounds kind of high-tech. Now, he was very successful when he did it with twins, which I thought was interesting, right? One twin that had a body odor problem and one that didn't. And so he was able to kind of transfer these bacteria. But again, because of genetics, we are genetically coded sometimes to what bacteria do proliferate. And so when he did it to people that weren't related, then it had a much less lasting effect. And so it was something that maybe lasted for a little while, but then those Staphylococcus hominis started to come back in these people. So there's obviously something genetic there too. But it did help for a little while, and obviously he says, 50% better is better than nothing, which I think anybody can agree. That if you're trying to get a hold of something like this type of a problem, then yeah, even a little bit better is better. So again, kind of a crazy article. This kind of this sci-fi, ideas that, hey, we've found this bacteria, we've found what it produces, we know the pathway now, but there isn't anything right now as far as what we can do for that. As far as trying to stop that pathway. So this might be the future in these deodorants and in these antiperspirants and things like that, is instead of just blanketly putting something on that, like I say, either stops the sweating, excuse me, or just masks, the odor. This is something now that maybe they'll be able to target these bacteria and try to say, okay, let's throw them off this pathway producing these thioalcohols. And so anyway, I feel like this is more of a public service announcement type of thing, that if this is something that you struggle with, that there is hope. And if this is something that you are in close proximity to someone that struggles with this, then there is also hope. So anyway, there's the idea for that, and like I say, hopefully it wasn't too gross this morning, but just something to think about, and maybe that might be interesting. Again, I haven't heard from our friends from the ER, but I'm thinking that that they're probably going to just be busy, because even if they were on their way now, they wouldn't be here for a little while. So we can be glad that the ER is doing well in here. In fact, I'll just kind of mention briefly about what this kind of means for the Valley and for our hospital, and then I've got a couple other things I wanted to talk about too. So let me get into this email. Amy Tuddenham, who has been on the show, who I like a ton, sent me a little kind of press release when this happened. So again, they have been designated a level 5 trauma center. Now, anyone that knows about our hospital knows that it's not, there's no ICU there, there's no, most of the time when we have emergency type of situations where lives are on the line, they get life flighted somewhere else, right? We have a great life flight system, a great life flight team. In fact, the friend that I have that had to be life flighted from Heber, and I think he went to Orem, I think he said that the helicopter ride was, some ridiculous, 7 minutes or something like that. I don't know. I might be over exaggerating, but I know it was less than 20. Basically from lift off to land, it was like a 10-minute situation. So it's amazing that we can get these people to these places so quickly. But Friday, March 27th, so it hasn't been very long, is when Heber Valley Medical Center received this level 5 trauma designation. And so basically what this means is it requires the hospital to be experts in trauma. And so not just, level 1, level 2, it's pretty good, but we sure need to get them somewhere else. It's a pretty high standard. In fact, most places that have this designation do have ICUs on site. These are places like the Orums, like the Salt Lakes that you would go to in any type of crisis. And so it really is quite a badge of courage for our hospital here. And so definitely we're going to have these people on to talk about it. But I think what it means for the community is that we're actually maybe even getting a step or two closer to having that kind of full service. Hey, when something happens here, we're not as worried about, oh, how fast can we get to these other places, right? I think for sure what we need to do is feel more comfortable when an emergency happens. Hey, I can just go right down the road. And I know there's this kind of stigma, right, about the Heber Hospital. It was there definitely when I moved here, but I think we're for sure getting a lot better as far as what we can do there, what services they offer, and they're just to be commended to Sean Morrow and his whole staff and just the whole idea there. Commended in really trying to make it a place where people feel very comfortable going in with any of the problems they may have. So we will definitely have the Averys on to talk about what it is that this means for our hospital and community. We'll do another Thursday for sure soon. But definitely an interesting and important thing for us here in the Valley. And so I just wanted to make sure we highlighted that's what's going on, and that's what they have going on there. So look forward for that show coming up soon for sure. The other thing I wanted to talk about today is again the importance of water. I just continue to realize that the overuse and the over drinking of drinks that are other than water, right? And I sympathize with you guys. Don't get me wrong. Drinks can be a nice treat, right? That idea that you pop the tab and it's fizzy and it's sugary and it tastes good, and there's a whole lot of reasons why people drink things other than water. And I think everyone knows that water is important to drink. Hopefully that's not something that thinks, oh, we're still on the fence about water. Like, we really know that water can be really helpful. But what I want to do is highlight 10 problems that you can solve on your own just by drinking more water, right? So people say, oh, water's good to drink. Well, why? Well, because it's good for you. I don't know. So here's some highlights, and hopefully for the next little while we can talk about each one of these. But I found this article quite interesting. Again, hydration should be more about just not being thirsty, right? Our body needs to be hydrated. There's a lot of reasons why. And so here's these 10 problems. Now the first one's really interesting because it's a bad mood, right? So if you're one that feels cranky or ornery, right, almost always when we have those bad moods, the first thing we want to do is almost emotionally eat, right? We think that sugar is going to help us with our mood. We talk about people that maybe diet and are restrictive in their diets, and they sometimes get bad moods. But we found that mild dehydration is actually a mood killer. And so a water loss of just 1 or even 2% made patients more tense and anxious in this research study conducted at the University of Connecticut. And so if you drink water, then it actually enhances your mood. So the next time you feel cranky, maybe try, instead of grabbing some sugary or something emotionally that you usually want to eat, then grab some water and see if that helps. And in fact, they had this idea too, that it says, let some bubbles lift your spirits. That sparkling water has the feel of a special celebratory drink, but offers the same hydration benefits as water. And this is something I got to tell you that I've been doing really recently, is I have found that flavored sparkling water. Now, when I say flavored, don't get too nervous, right? Because I'm talking about lemon. I'm talking about like a squeeze of lemon, squeeze of lime, something like that. Very natural flavorings, right? I'm not talking about your zero drinks, right? Your vitamin water zero that have artificial sweeteners in it, right? I'm talking about just strictly natural fruit or whatever flavorings that don't have any other chemicals in them. And the idea here is, for me, what it did is it helped kind of curb that. Sometimes I just need that bubbly feeling, right? And they come in cans, which is fantastic because you can keep the can in the fridge. You can pull it out, and you can, get that feeling that I really like. I don't know if that comes through the airwaves as well as I'm hoping, but you can pop that tab and you can drink that soda, that sparkling water, and it kind of feels good, going down the throat. So now, don't be confused or surprised if it doesn't taste like soda pop. Obviously, it's not near as sugary. It has no calories. It gives you hydration, all that kind of stuff. But it definitely is not super sweet. So don't feel like, oh, I'm going straight into this. I'm not sure if it's even a good substitute if you're trying to stop drinking soda to go to this, but it could be a step in the right direction. And like some people say, sometimes I just need a treat when I drink, and sometimes this can be different enough than water, a plain water, to make it somewhat interesting. So you can try that for a mood enhancement. The second thing is difficulty concentrating. So again, what we found is that if you're not drinking enough water, then you can suffer from more confusion and memory difficulties. And so this is kind of interesting because if we're looking at brain function and our society and where we're going with as we age and our brain function, things like that, this is playing a part into how well our brains function when we're older, how well we hydrate. And so again, we need to be drinking the water, and this one's for concentration. Number 3 is chapped lips. Now, this is something that my kids are just struggling with this winter, and the desert climate, right, is a hard thing for this. But sometimes it's a hydration issue, right? It's not just the air that's dry. It can actually be the fact that we're not drinking enough water. So that's another thing too that can be helped, is these chapped lips. It's funny because I feel like I need to drink more water while I'm talking about water, and now it's making me cough. That's not one of the 10 things that helps with the cough. Sometimes it spurs a cough, but anyway, I'm digressing. Now, number 4 is something I see a ton for sure, is headaches. Right, in my chiropractic office, a very common reason for people to seek my care is headaches. But I think it's generally known, or at least people think that they have a handle on this, that hydration is helpful in headaches. Some people really know, oh my goodness, like I haven't been drinking enough water, I'm starting to get headaches. Well, let me tell you why. Blood vessels in your head narrow as a way to regulate your body fluid levels. So if you're dehydrated, then these blood vessels can actually shrink down so that we can get more fluid in other areas, kind of conserve the fluid that we have. So because of that, it's more difficult for your blood to get oxygen to reach your brain because, again, there's not as much blood flow going around. So when we hydrate, then we make sure those blood vessels don't constrict and we don't get that headache. And so headache is definitely a big teller for someone that is really dehydrated. If we're talking about like heat stroke or heat exhaustion even, right, we're seeing these headaches are a big sign. So if you're one that suffers from frequent headaches, hydration is always a good thing to look at. This is something I always tell my patients, like, hey, how's your water level? And I have to tell you, too, that we're talking about hydration. If you're one that drinks caffeine, that caffeine is a diuretic, which means it will dehydrate you further, right? So if you're a coffee drinker, soda drinker, and even if it's the diet soda, right, if you're a big-time diet soda drinker, it's got caffeine in it. It's going to be a diuretic. It's going to make you less hydrated. So not only will you need to drink the regular amount of water to stay hydrated, but you'll need to drink more than the regular amount, right? Because you're actually doing something that's counterproductive to your hydration. So that's a really good thing to think about, is how's my caffeine consumption? Because if it's higher than 0, right, then I need to compensate with more water. So headache's a big thing. If you're one that suffers frequently, you know usually that, hey, when I'm less hydrated, that's when I have more headaches.
It's better from a preventative standpoint than hey, I'm in the throes of a headache, I'm just going to drink water till I puke. But it can help normalize those levels. But you just want to make sure, hey, I'm going to continue to drink more water. I'm going to boost my water drinking, and then that might help with those headaches. Number 5 is one that's very interesting to people because this was another thing that people suffer from, is this daytime fatigue. Right, and so a lot of people will blame their afternoon crash on lack of sleep. Right, you just didn't sleep long enough. Oh, I had a late night, or I had a rough night, so I didn't sleep long enough. So obviously, afternoon comes, I'm going to feel sleepy, I'm going to crash, type of thing. But dehydration can be the root cause of that. And so, again, before you think, hey, maybe I just need to take a nap, if this is something that you can notice, and obviously if you're up one night really late studying for a test or finishing something that's due, you got a deadline, or you got a kid that's sick or something like that, if you crash that next day in the afternoon, I'm not too worried about that, right? That's probably a direct result. But if you're one that finds consistently most afternoons it's hard to stay awake, napping might not be the only way to help with that, right? And if you're at work, or if you're somewhere where napping's not going to happen, if you have kids, then that can be another, it's not even a solution anyway. So hydration is something I think you can look at and start to say, hey, let's see if we can drink more water, and if we drink more water, then maybe we'll see a little bit more in that crashing in the afternoon. Maybe we won't do quite as much. Again, we usually reach for the caffeine that time. We're like, hey, I'm kind of feeling sluggish. I better grab my Diet Coke or my cup of coffee or whatever it is. But in that sense, in that regard, we're just compounding the problem. We're just saying, hey, darn it, my body's crying out for hydration. I give it some liquid that now makes me further dehydrated, and we're just making this issue even worse. So if we're looking to kind of stop that cycle and actually get to the root of the problem, then hydration could be the thing. So again, let me take another sip of my water, because talking about it makes me feel like I'm dehydrated. Okay, the number 6 thing is one that I think anyone could be interested in. Water actually can help with extra weight. Now, water itself isn't any magical fat-burning substance, right? It's not like, but increased water intake is linked with weight loss. So if you drink a good glass of water before every meal, it'll actually discourage you from overeating, and it will boost your metabolism. So, right, you sit down to drink, and again, when I was in college, it was like, hey, if I'm taking a girl out on a date and we sit down at a restaurant, like, I want her to be able to order any drink she, feels like she wants. It shouldn't just be a water, right? Almost ordering water at a restaurant almost seems like this cheaping out type of thing, like, oh, I don't have the money to buy an expensive soda pop for $2 or whatever. But it's funny because now it's become this, for me, almost a health thing, like, hey, good, I'm sitting down at a restaurant. I want to make sure that I make healthy choices. I want to make sure that I don't overeat, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, start me out with some water, and I'm going to drink a couple of those glasses of water while I'm figuring out what I want to eat, or while I'm ordering, or while I'm waiting for my food. And that'll actually boost my metabolism while I'm there. It'll make it so I don't overeat, that kind of thing. So I always tell people that if you're going to get a drink, you feel like, hey, I don't want to cheap out and not get my soda pop, get the water too, right? Have the water there, because it really, really is important come mealtime if you're trying to kind of maintain or lose weight or keep that metabolism where you want it to be. Obviously, when you drink water instead of soda, you're decreasing tons of calories. And so that's another way too, is you say, hey, if I'm swapping out my water with some of these calorie-laden drinks that I'm used to drinking, then I'm going to have less calories that I'm consuming. So, anyway, so always I think for sure before meals, drinking a few cups of water is a really, really good idea. Muscle cramps. Now, this is something, again, people will come in to talk to me about and ask me questions about. But if you're talking about any kind of cramps, right, from Charlie horses that you get at night, some people wake up and their toes are curled because their feet are cramping up. And this is anywhere from, hey, I've been working out really hard, and so my muscles are just kind of fatigued, to I've been sitting somewhere for too long, and so my muscles are kind of reacting that way. There are all kinds of different reasons to have muscle cramping. Most people have had some of it, on a small or large scale. But I will tell you that that even muscle tension, right? Anytime you have muscle issues where you feel like, hey, my muscles are tight or they're cramping, anything like that, hydration is really, really key in helping keep that down, right? So actually, in fact, they've found out that dehydration is the #1 cause of muscle cramps. So anytime you're feeling that come on, or if you're one that suffers from maybe even a restless leg syndrome or something like that, now I wouldn't drink a gallon of water right before you go to bed, because then you'll have other problems throughout the night. But if that's something you say, hey, I suffer from that sometimes. I feel like my muscles contract too much, or I feel like I have too much tension. Really pushing hydration. In fact, it's funny because, if you've had a massage, you realize that you leave and people say, massage therapists, oh, make sure you drink a lot of water so it can help flush toxins out, right? You've probably heard that before. It's interesting. I've talked to a massage therapist friend of mine that says, that's not really, there's not really any research. There's not really any ideas here that say, oh, well, yeah, if you drink more water, you get more toxins flushed out, so you're not quite as sore after the massage. But some people really know that when they do drink water or they don't drink water after some sort of body work, it does play a role into how they feel soreness-wise after that. And I think this might be the path that they're taking a little bit more than flushing toxins out. I think, again, when the body is hydrated, then the muscles don't have to tense up so much. So if you're one that likes to get body work, or if you're one that feels like muscles are too tense, things like that, really push the hydration. And we're going to talk after we go through these 10 the best way to do it, right? Because again, I said you don't just want to say, oh, okay, here's my gallon jug, I'm going to drink it as fast as I can, and then I'm going to become hydrated, right? It's got to be a more constant thing, so we'll talk about that. Number 8 is one that I've never experienced, but I know if you have, it's something that is not a very fun thing. These are kidney stones. And I think this is another one that's generally known and pretty widely accepted, is that when we have low fluid intake and dehydration, then it's a major risk factor for kidney stones. And so as far as, is this something that can prevent them, right? I feel like, that I'm well hydrated, but I still am one that suffers from them. I'm not really sure. It doesn't give a whole lot of information on that. But they do say that the people that are more hydrated have less of a risk for kidney stones. And so if you're one that suffers from them, if you're one that worries about it, this is a really good reason to keep your hydration up. And they had kind of a fun idea here. They said grapes and cranberries and blueberries are really good at improving kidney function also. So they said instead of using plain ice cubes, then you can freeze some of these fruits into your cubes for a little pretty, fun looking and good tasting addition to your water. And you guys have probably been to places where they have lemon water or cucumber water where they add these different fruits or vegetables into the water. And you can definitely taste it, but I'll tell you that a lot of these minerals are water soluble. And so you're getting these minerals through just dissolving something like that into it. And so that might be a really fun thing, maybe even for the kids, right? To say, hey, we're going to make ice cubes that have little blueberries in them or pieces of whatever, and we're going to put them into the ice cubes, and then we're going to put those in the water. And that might make it more fun for the kids to drink water, right? I know that's another thing, and we could have probably half a show on just how can I get my kids to enjoy drinking water, because they always want juice, right? Again, going down to the zoo yesterday, I mean, everybody had some sort of drink other than water, because it's this idea that, the kids, they want something. But we can, I think, train our kids to really crave water and drink water, and it's very, very important for our children to be hydrated for sure. If you think any of these things on the list that that we don't want to deal with as adults, with the afternoon crash and the muscle cramps and the things like this. Kids' bodies can do the same thing, right? They can be exactly susceptible to these same issues. And so look to their hydration also. But how do we get them to drink water? This might take a little bit more creative, and so I think that's one really good idea, is to say, hey, let's freeze some fruits or some chopped up something or other into the ice cubes, and then put that in the cup, a clear cup that they can see it in, and then as the ice melts, they see these things kind of come out. That might be a really fun thing. Number 9, again, something that people really struggle with is constipation. And dehydration is the most common cause for this problem. Again, isn't it interesting that so many of these problems that are very common are caused by dehydration, that dehydration is the number one reason for these problems. And so we could be looking at all kinds of different things when really dehydration comes in at number one in each of these types of things. So we need the water to flush out waste. In fact, in our large intestine, that's where kind of the feces are formed. That's where most of our water gets absorbed. So if we just aren't having enough water in our diets and in our systems, then it is going to suck out as much water as possible, and then that's what's going to make the stool really hard to pass. And so, again, a kid issue, an adult issue. This is one that's not fun to talk about. I mean, luckily on this show today we've covered body odor and constipation. So if you're not yet thoroughly grossed out, then please, luckily we still have 10 minutes to get you there. But basically what we're looking at with constipation is we need the water in our system, not just in drinking water, but also water-rich foods. And so obviously fruits that are high in water content are really good for this. Oranges, right? If you just got in that same fundraiser, right, that I was involved in with the polo team, right? The water polo team actually sold boxes of oranges, and I got my box last night, and it was huge, and we had 2 oranges from it, and they were delicious. But oranges are a really good high in water content fruit. That can help hydrate kids, especially, or adults for sure. And this is water that doesn't go through the traditional kidney system. This is water that can be absorbed into the large intestine. So if we're talking constipation, water in general, right, hydration is good, but eating water-rich foods is also going to be very helpful there too. Now, number 10 is one I've never struggled with, but it's a problem with a hangover. Right? Dehydration is behind many of the pains that a hangover can cause. And so if you'll drink 16 to 20 ounces of water before you go to bed, then you might feel a lot better in the morning, right? So you're fatigued, I don't know, again, I haven't had any of these symptoms, headaches, right? Whatever it is. I like the show that I watched that a daughter came home and she was obviously hungover, and the mom said, "Oh, I've got a cure for that," and she mixed up this terrible drink, and the daughter drank it and just thought it was just awful, just couldn't believe that, and her mom said, "No, don't worry, it should help." And then she leaves, and one of the other kids says, "Wow, that's really for hangover?" And the mom was like, "No." And so it's more just torture and punishment for the daughter from overindulging. And so anyway, water can be really helpful in that. That might be part of one of these miracle cure hangover drinks. So that's kind of the list of the 10. Again, I'm sure there are other things, but these are really common problems that are around today that we can now start to really help with and say, hey, our hydration, again, I think there's a lot of things that we do as a society right now that decreases our hydration, that makes us more dehydrated. I had Betty Wade on a couple of weeks ago. Remember, she was talking about hydration. She actually gives people a picture of what color your urine should look like to know if you're hydrated or not. And so if you're interested, I would go to the hospital and I would ask her for that picture, for that chart, because you really want to know, am I hydrated, am I not? Because a lot of these health problems that you may be experiencing either on a regular basis or just from time to time, could have more to do with hydration than anything else. So how do I hydrate, right? How do I make sure that my system is hydrated? It is not in the binge drinking of water. It is not in, oh shoot, I should drink more water, and so I'm just going to really, knock back this, I don't know, 2-liter bottle of water, right? We're not doing the gallon challenge with our water. It's this slow, consistent, always have water around. And so what I tell my patients or anyone that I talk to about hydration is to get yourself a good liter-sized bottle, right? Whether you're a person that believes that water bottles that are disposable shouldn't be around for any reason, be it the plastic, be it the environment, be whatever. If you don't like the disposable ones, then don't get a disposable one. Find one. You can find a really nice BPA-free bottle that you can bring water around. But just have one that you have, and this is your water bottle, right? And say, okay, now 3 liters is the recommendation that we should be getting from our food and the water that we drink, right? So every day we should be getting 3 liters of water, whether that be from any source that we put into our mouth. So I'm not saying that you should drink 3 liters of water right off the bat, but if you're one that drinks caffeine, if you're one that doesn't eat a lot of water-rich foods, then that might not be a bad recommendation for you. I actually like to get to the point where I'm drinking 3 liters a day. That way I don't have to worry about how much is in my food. I can just drink and know that I'm getting the right amount. So what I do is get that liter bottle, right, and fill that up in the morning. Again, I think it's important to drink some before every meal. So even before you eat your breakfast, don't drink the whole liter, right? Don't pound the drink. I don't want you to get stomach aches from trying to hydrate. But drink a good few gulps, right? Drink what you think maybe a glass full would be. And then eat your meal. You can drink intermittently through the meal, but take your bottle to then wherever you go, right? If you're on your way to work, if you're on your way to a workout, if you're on your way to just if you're just staying at home, and wherever you go, have that bottle with you. And from that point until lunchtime, finish that bottle. And again, don't get to the end of the time and be like, oh shoot, I forgot to drink any more. And just, if you are constantly just taking sips and gulps and things like that here and there, that's how you're really going to boost your hydration. Also, it's going to help with going to the bathroom more frequently, right? Some people say, I want to start drinking more water, but anytime I do that, then I have to, go to the bathroom every 5 minutes, it seems like. Now, there will be a period of your body kind of recalibrating a little bit and saying, oh wow, I'm getting all this water, I need to do something with it. But if you'll be consistent with it, then your body will reset and you'll be able to go longer. It's not like something that you'll have to deal with for a long, long period of time. So you have to be consistent with it, but maybe be close to a bathroom at the beginning, just so you know, in case you're going more frequently. And you can tell people, so they don't think something's wrong with you. Hey, I'm really trying to push my hydration, and so I know that for the first little while I'm going to be using the restroom more frequently. So just know that. Anyway, so get that liter drinking before lunchtime, and then when it's lunchtime, fill it up one more time. Go to wherever you do to fill it up, get that next liter of water. Again, drink some before you eat your lunch, and then throughout the day, whether you're finishing up at work or you're at home or if you're doing something else, just have that bottle with you and drink that next liter from lunch to dinner. And if you can get that done, then at dinner time, again, now if you're one that already struggles with, sometimes as we get older, it's a little bit harder to sleep through the night without going to the bathroom, especially for kids, right? I wouldn't push this type of rigor on children. I would probably say more a half-liter bottle or 3/4 even. But I don't know if I would necessarily fill up the full liter from dinner to bed, because sometimes that can only be a small amount of time. But for sure, before dinner, I would drink some water, and before I went to bed, I would drink a little bit also. Again, true hydration is going to come from these small, kind of intermittent, constantly putting water into the system. That can also curb your hunger. It can do other things for sure. But that's going to give you the biggest increase in your hydration, instead of just, okay, let's fill up the liter bottle, let's drink it as fast as we can, and then I don't have to worry about drinking for the rest of the, until I get to the lunchtime or whatever. Now, if you're one that has forgotten or whatever, obviously you can drink more at a time, but it will also make you have to go to the bathroom more also. So keep that bottle around. Find one that you can travel with very easily and effectively. And if you can get about 2 to 2.5 liters a day, you can guarantee that you're getting the rest of it in your food. Now, the other thing that can help with is if you're one that, man, I just need that drink, I'm going by the gas station, I'm going to get that drink, make sure that water bottle's with you. Now, I'm not saying don't get the drink if that's a habit that you have that you're trying to break, but the water can help with it. So before you drink your Coke or your Diet Coke or whatever it is that you're getting at the gas station, drink some of that water. And in fact, it wouldn't be a bad idea to drink the same amount of water that you're about to drink in a cup of coffee or a 32-ounce or even a can of soda, right? That's a good way to kind of gauge, hey, this is how much of this soda that I'm putting into my system, as opposed to this is what it feels like to drink that amount of water at one time. And so I think the more water that we drink, obviously the easier it is to get over some of these other drinks that we've been drinking. But it just helps with all of these issues. So again, I'm a big add the good stuff first type of proponent. I hate watching people suffer when they're trying to just willpower through not drinking something that they've drunken for a long time, that they love. But I think also one of our pitfalls is we think, hey, I don't want to drink soda anymore, but I don't like water, right? How many of you thought that? And so I'm going to find something else. Again, as we look for something else, then that's when we're introducing some of these harmful chemicals. And so really we need to just get over the fact that if we don't like water, maybe add some fruit to it, maybe add some lemon, whatever it is, something small, but get that water in your system as a drink of water. Get the water from a good water source, not just some vitamin water or something that you just buy at the store and say, oh, good, well, I'm getting water this way. Have that bottle around. Carry it with you, right? Do what you can with it and make sure you're drinking that water. And if you'll do it that way, then I think that's how you'll notice those hydration changes. Now, the nice thing is, right, good hydration does not take long for some of these problems to start to go away because the body starts to get used to it. Saying, okay, this is the new level of hydration that we're used to. We can start to, let the blood vessels kind of relax a little bit, right, and dilate some. That'll get more blood, more oxygen to all your areas, right? That'll help with the muscle cramps. It'll help with headaches very automatically. And then also, right, hey, we've got enough water in the system. We don't have to pull as much from the food. And so that constipation issue will go away quickly too. I recently kind of on accident turned on Dr. Oz and saw that he was talking about the dangers of drinking too much water. And so maybe someone's thinking in their mind, like, is that possible? It kind of is. But to be honest, if you're sipping on water most of the day, I think it's more of a healthy habit than a non-healthy habit. But don't go overboard, right? I don't think 3 liters is overboard for sure, especially if you're not trying to drink it in one setting. If you're trying to do 3 liters at one time, then I think you're overboard. But that aspect of it, I think, is way less of a concern than the concern really that I have that people don't get enough water. And so my joke when people leave the office is I say, maybe drink a little bit more water. And they say, oh, because that'll help with the soreness. And I'll say, no, because you need to drink more water, because we all need to drink more water. So that is my ending thought for the morning. Again, luckily we're getting some snow in the mountains so that we won't feel guilty drinking more water throughout the summertime if we're looking at a drought this summer because of the lack of moisture. So let's get more rain and more precipitation, more snow even, just so we can drink our water and stay hydrated and not feel guilty about it. Hopefully that information today has been helpful. Hopefully you guys will go out and get that water, that liter bottle, and get that filled up and start drinking a little bit more. You'll notice differences really quickly. Do it. Go out and be healthy. If you don't do it for any other reason, do it just for the health of it. Thank you for listening.